welcome to Telesur. I'm Doris Polo-Nkito, and this is From the South. Guyana's main political parties are currently hosting their final rallies simultaneously. The Partnership for National Unity and Alliance for Change coalition started their mobilization at 5 p.m. local time. The People's Progressive Party Civic began a couple hours earlier, with reports that 10,000 people are in attendance. Opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo addressed supporters at the party's final rally, reminding of the importance of this crucial election.
We fought them off in the streets, in the parliament, and every other arena. But now it's your turn to join the fight. And you join the fight on Monday with your ballot, with your vote. This is the day of reckoning has come for all the wrongdoings, on our country. That day of reckoning is March 2nd. So I'm counting on all of you here, the tens of thousands of you here today, to ensure that you play your part. And when you go to that polling place, keep in your head what the future can look like, what next week will look like, what our country will look like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years from now. That we all be very proud of it. Thank you very much, comrades.
Guyana's ruling Partnership for National Unity and Alliance for Change coalition held its youth rally in Linden on Friday night. Supporters were entertained by dancers as well as popular local and regional singers. The event, staged like a concert, sought to target first-time and young voters. The party's final rally will be held, or is currently being held, in Georgetown. So let's go live to Guyana's capital with our special correspondent Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro, since your arrival in Guyana, what can you tell us about the atmosphere in this peak election period, and how does it differ from when you covered the December 6th election in Dominica?
Well, greetings from this friendly town of Georgetown in Guyana. We arrived this morning, and what we have seen here is a very colorful atmosphere. Like you said, this is a kind of a concert. People are very, in a festive mood. They are listening to music, dancing themselves. The country does not seem to be in the polarization that we have seen in other places. Yet the polarization is real and is big, because the country is preparing itself to receive huge amounts of money. This government of Brigadier David Granger has promised growth of the national product by 86% in 2020. 86% is a huge figure. On the other side, the People's Progressive Party is saying that the contracts already signed with the ExxonMobil, the oil contracts to exploit the riches that are behind the earth, we're waiting for exploitation, amount the loss for charging a 1% royalty, the loss amounts to $55 billion US. So who is going to manage these new riches? Who is going to distribute or not distribute? Who is going to align themselves with the transnational corporations or with the people? That is what seems to be at stake at this point. But both parties claim to be socialist, both parties claim to be progressive, both parties call themselves, the members, comrade. So it's very difficult because they have the same root, the same party. They were both parties. This coalition, which is controlled, dominated by the People's National Congress and the People's Progressive Party, both were born together in the 50s. So the atmosphere is not violent. We don't see any violence, and much less, that what we experienced in Dominica in December, where there was a show staged by the OAS to steal the elections from Prime Minister Skerrit. This is not going to be the situation now, although many in the Caribbean have doubts about legal issues here in Guyana.
And have you been able, Alejandro, to speak to anyone about their candidate or party of choice? Because I see you are at the APNU AFC Stronghouse, where they are having their main rally right now.
Well, you know, the situation here in Guyana, there is a very complex ethnic situation. That means the People's Progressive Party is mostly aligned with the interests of the Indo-Guyanan community. On the other side, the People's National Congress and this Partnership for National Unity is mostly based on the interests or identity of the African Guyanese community. Both have the same roots. People who were brought here to slaves or servants to work for the plantations, to work for the colonizers. So they have the same roots and basically share the same principles because they were in the struggle against colonialism, and they both promoted a sort of socialism called cooperative socialism. In fact, the country is called the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Therefore, that ethnic division is also playing a big part, and it has been for the last 45, 50 years, when these two great leaders of Guyana, Forbes Burnham and Chetty Yagan, split and went to the different communities they were representing. So that's also an issue that hasn't been solved, although the country doesn't seem to be violent. We don't see any differences or violent problems between the two communities. But anyway, it is part of this, the structure of this society, and it has to be solved somehow for the future, because there are big changes awaiting Guyanese society.
Now, Alejandro, you did mention that the OAS is not particularly interfering in this election, but PPPC leader Barrett Jagdeo raised concerns about the Election Commission discontinuing the use of private residents as voting stations due to alleged irregularities in the 2015 polls. Now, it's an issue he raised with the election observers. What sort of implications do you think this will have on whether the voters do see a free and fair election?
Well, the electoral system has been criticized, to say something, for the last few elections. Even the U.S. was always complaining that the People's National Congress of former Prime Minister, former President Forbes Burnham was rigging elections systematically. Now there has been a re-registration of people, so there are complaints about that too. But the difference with, no, not the difference, the similarity with Dominica is that it's not only the OAS observing these elections, there are about 10 different groups observing, including the EU, the Commonwealth, and the Caribbean community, plus the OAS, to see that the results are accurate. It's very hard for us to say whether there is irregularities. It seems to be that for a long time these things have happened. Even, like I said, the United States have complained that a government that is rather friendlier to the U.S. than the PP, the Progressive Party, has been ensuring that via fraud that they keep their grip on power. It remains to be seen, what the mobilization of people on Monday will prevent these issues, and whether the observation missions are capable of detecting such irregularities. At this point, for us, it's very difficult to assess the reality in that sense.
And we know that David Granger has been seeking medical attention for cancer. Do you think that this will have any bearings on the voter's choice?
Sorry, I did not hear the entire question. Can you repeat it?
No problem. What I'm asking you is that the President, David Granger, he has been seeking medical attention for cancer. And so I'm asking if you think that that will have any bearing on the voter's choice.
It doesn't look like it will have any bearing. What will really play a part is that the manifesto that this party has presented does not seem, this is, I try to say this carefully, the manifesto presented by the government or this coalition does not seem to be tackling the big problems that the country is facing. And on the other hand, this 1% royalty and this alliance with the ExxonMobil, which is, many in the official side, in the government side, say it is to prevent Venezuela to invade the country, which looks like a kind of ridiculous from my point of view. But that it's good for the country to have an American presence and even American soldiers involves a geopolitical struggle. I don't know how big the cancer, the illness of Brigadier Granger is going to define this. So far, people are not been speaking about this. We haven't heard that as an issue, whether to vote or not to vote. More of what we have seen is the ethnical difference between Indo-Guyanese and African Guyanese, more or less sided with both sides of this spectrum, which, it's the kind of thing, the cultural identity thing that is so hard to assess.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, for bringing us what is taking place right now in the capital, Georgetown, Guyana, as elections are in high gear. Now, these elections in Guyana come at the end of a long political crisis, which began with a vote of no confidence in the government back in 2018. And behind the crisis is the issue of oil.
It was back in 1999 that Guyana's government dished out concessions to explore for oil to the US oil giant ExxonMobil. After David Granger came to power in 2015, ExxonMobil stepped up its exploration in waters off the Essequibo, a region that's in dispute with Venezuela. Granger says the deal with the US company will bring big benefits to Guyana. But others aren't so sure. The group Global Witness estimates that Guyana is losing $55 billion as a result of the terms of its agreement with ExxonMobil, which clearly benefit the US oil company more than the country. It was in this situation that the opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo in December 2018 presented before the Guyanese parliament a motion of no confidence in the government of David Granger. He accused them of misusing the oil revenue. Members of parliament from the opposition People's Progressive Party, or PPP, naturally voted for the motion, while members of the governing coalition opposed it, except that one lawmaker from the ruling coalition, Charandas Persad, voted with the opposition. That gave them the 33 votes they needed to pass the motion of no confidence in Granger's government. A long and messy political and legal dispute ensued. Finally, on the 25th of September last year, Granger finally announced general elections for this 2nd of March, the date he'd agreed with Guyana's Election Commission.
So to find out more about what is at stake in these elections, we are joined live from Georgetown by the political analyst, Dr. David Hines. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Hines.
And thank you for having me. Good evening.
What do you think is the most important thing that the people in Guyana want to see addressed by whichever side wins these elections?
I think you hit it on the head when you introduced your program. It is the coming oil and gas economy. And I would think that the people of Guyana, on both sides of the political divide, would want to know what plans the incoming government has for development of Guyana using the oil and gas income. More importantly, I would think the people, the ordinary people, the working people of the country are concerned about what benefits they would get directly from oil. And so I think as we go into the elections, the pressure is on the two major political contestants to say in explicit terms, how are they going to use the oil and gas revenue to turn the country around,
to get the country out of this historic rut of things such as poverty and unemployment, which are really big problems in the country.
And how would you say the rival coalitions have been faring in the opinion polls leading up to the election?
Well, I have not seen any public opinion polls. I've heard that the two major political contestants have done internal polls, and they've kept that to themselves. They've not released it to the public. So there's really no credible poll that has been made public.
Now, earlier we conducted an interview with one of our journalists who is on the ground in Guyana, and he mentioned the issue of race. How does that shape political choices in Guyana, present-day Guyana?
Well, race has been a historic problem in Guyana, and we have had a situation for the last 70 years where people have expressed their electoral preferences based on race. So race is at the heart of political culture in Guyana. And so this election is not going to be any different. I think people are going to go to the polls, and the first line of action would be to ensure that the party that represents their ethnic group gets back into power. But I think beneath race, there is lurking the issue of policies. So this time around, I think we are going to have the racial voting patterns, the racial preferences, the defense of what people see as the honor and the integrity of their race. But I think mixed in with that is going to be the pressure on those ethnic parties to deliver in terms of policy, especially as it has to do with the oil and gas economy.
Now, Dr. Hines, the political dispute since that no-confidence vote in December 2018 has been quite complex and messy. How far do you think this has damaged President David Granger and his ruling coalition, or has he been able to rise above it?
No, I think it has not done much damage in terms of the coalition losing support. The no-confidence vote was very unpopular among African Guyanese who are the supporters by and large of the coalition. And their position is that here was a legitimately elected government, and that an Indian Guyanese member of the government brought the government down. And so what that no-confidence vote did was to really bring together in dramatic fashion the various elements within the African Guyanese community, including those who were not very much enthusiastic about the performance of the government up until December 2018. But once that no-confidence vote was passed, the various elements within the African Guyanese community coalesced around the government. And even those who stubbornly continued to express dissatisfaction with the government, they made it very clear that they were never going to vote for the PPP. On the other hand, the Indian Guyanese support base of the PPP, the no-confidence vote reinforced for them what had already come to, they had already concluded, and that was that this government was against their interests. This government was taking Guyana down the wrong road, and the no-confidence vote and the government's attitude to it reinforced what was there before. So I think that whatever damage that was done to the coalition in terms of its loss of Indian Guyanese support was done before the no-confidence motion. And the no-confidence motion and what arose out of that really reinforced what was there before.
Now, we just spoke a little on how important and crucial oil is for Guyana's future, and some weeks ago, the PPP leader threatened to exclude from future business any oil company that reached an agreement with President Granger to sell that oil. How do you see this issue playing out after the elections?
Which issue? I lost the first part of your question.
You see the future of the oil industry playing out for the elections, especially since the PPP leader said any company that made any deal with Guyana and the present government will not be considered should they win the elections.
I think that's rhetoric. Governments in Guyana have done that before. The current government had said that before it came to power. And when it came to power, it duly fell in line and respected whatever decisions the other side took. And I think if the PPP were to win this election, when they get into power, they would honor those contracts. Look, when you're a small society like Guyana, you're up against international forces. And often your decisions as it relates to international forces such as multinational corporations are driven not so much by your own political standing in your country, but by the dictates of the multinational corporations who by their sheer might be able to call the shots. So I don't think that the PPP will go ahead and dishonor contracts that have been signed by this government. That's all good political rhetoric for the campaign, but in my humble view, I don't think it's going to materialize. There are forces, for example, in the country which have been hammering the government for signing a very bad contract and calling for a renegotiation of the contract. The leader of the PPP joined that call, but when he pushed in the corner, whether in fact should the PPP get into power, that they would renegotiate the contract, he backed down and said it is not likely PPP will renegotiate the contract.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hines. We are out of time, but we do appreciate you for joining us.
And thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Hines, political analyst coming out of Guyana. We'll take a short break now. Join us again in just a tick. Ecuadorian health authorities have announced the country's first COVID-19 case, making it the third in Latin America. Health Minister Catalina Adramuno said the 71-year-old patient arrived from Spain on February 14th.
After the Pan American Health Organization announced that the COVID-19 virus was a public health emergency of international concern, all the necessary preventative measures were taken, not just here but in 50 other countries. This sought to prevent the coronavirus from spreading. However, we now have our first case of the virus in Ecuador. The patient is a citizen who lives in Spain and returned to the country on February 14 without showing any symptoms. A few days later, she reported a high fever and fatigue and was subsequently admitted to a clinic.
Our correspondent Estefania Bravo has the details.
The first case of coronavirus has been confirmed in the country of Ecuador. It is a 70-year-old woman in the city of Guayaquil, 8 hours away from Quito. The woman was in a flight from Madrid, arrived on the 14th of February, and when she arrived, she presented no symptoms, but the next day she started to present symptoms and is now at the hospital in a critical condition. She had contact with more than 80 people who are right now quarantined, and President Lenín Moreno has tweeted saying that we should take precautions as Ecuadorians and to remain calm. Minister Maria Paula Romo has also said that all protocols are being taken to ensure that Ecuadorians are safe. That is all we have for you right now.
Meanwhile, Brazil's health ministry has confirmed the country's second case of the fast-spreading new coronavirus diagnosed in a patient in Sao Paulo who had recently visited Italy. The first was confirmed on February 26th. That patient was a 61-year-old man in Sao Paulo who also returned recently from Italy and is recovering at home after being discharged from hospital. Shifting gears now to Europe, former president of Catalonia, Carlos Puigdemont, has held a rally in southern France, calling on his compatriots to continue to fight for independence. Addressing the tens of thousands who turned out for the rally, Puigdemont said the people of Catalonia will never give up their struggle for a sovereign state. Since being forced into exile in 2017 following the failed independence bid, the separatist leader has not risked traveling to France as the police and the courts work closely with Madrid. But that changed recently when he was granted immunity as a member of the European Parliament.
As a region that firmly wants to be free and has started to walk that path since years ago, we know, and also they know, we will not stop. We will not stop, and they will not stop us. It isn't about waiting for better times. Better times are here among you.
The United States has come to a peace agreement with Taliban fighters in Afghanistan, which will pave the way for the complete withdrawal of U.S. troops from the country. The two sides signed the deal in Qatar 18 years after the U.S. invaded the South Asian nation. Taliban leaders have emphasized that the agreement will only hold if the U.S. keeps its promise to withdraw withdraw its troops, something the group has been demanding for several years. And that news brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.